This is AM Tampa Bay on Monday, January 15th. Ryan Gorman in for Jack and Ted this morning. And right now we turn to Shannon Walker from Fox News Radio to talk about fake service dogs. Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, I can't be positive that some of the dogs that I've run into at a grocery store or a restaurant were fake service dogs because I didn't confront the owner about it. But I'm pretty sure they exhibited behaviors that a service dog probably shouldn't exhibit. How big of a problem is this these days?
Well, it's a huge problem. At Northwest Battle Buddies, we provide service dogs to combat veterans who have PTSD. So we are out in public every day, and I bet you I encounter fake service dogs every day. And the thing is that sometimes it might be difficult, to be able to determine if they're fake or not. But some dead giveaways are the handling of the dogs being on those retractable leashes, the dogs walking 2 or 3 feet in front of its handler, not to mention the unruly, explosive behavior at times. There's absolutely no way those dogs are professional service dogs. And even if they were professional service dogs, any unruly behavior by any dog out in public can be asked to leave, professional service dog or not.
Right. Like the dog in the restaurant. It came up to me. And now, look, I don't know. Maybe some service dogs have a momentary lapse and they want to go up to a person. But that's typically not what they're supposed to do, correct? They're supposed to stay by their owner and kind of ignore the people around them.
Absolutely. They are not allowed to be petted in public, and they are supposed to completely ignore their environment. And that's another key to people who have fake service dogs, because nobody who has a real service dog is going to want that dog to be interrupted, because the dog is trained to perform tasks to serve the disability in public. And people who are not trained don't know that, and they let everybody pet their dog like it would be a therapy dog. And there's an absolute clear distinction and difference why people with real service dogs do not do that. And the public is getting confused about what the etiquette is about a real service dog or not. We are always having people want to pet our dogs out in public, and they may be very polite about it, but they'll also say, but I always pet service dogs. Well, I'll be honest, I don't take the time to explain every single law or the reason why you can't do that or why it was wrong in the past, because it's not their fault. But it still creates a tremendous obstacle for people with real service dogs that need to just be able to go through their life and have a normal life with their service dog at their side, serving them in a professional way.
So how is this happening? Are people just completely taking advantage of the system? Are they finding new ways to get service dogs certified, even though they probably shouldn't be? Are they literally just slapping fake tags on dogs? What exactly is happening? Or is it all of the above?
I think it's all of the above, to a certain, they are literally just finding out that there's not the stringent way to prove, because in the past service dogs were service dogs for the blind or the hearing impaired or mobility dogs. So
exactly.
Very, very clear. But it's become a fad. Once people with pets, they think it's a novelty to take their dog out in public just to have their dog with them. And then they've realized that there's really no checks and balances, and until laws are passing, there are no penalties for fake service dogs. And because patrons, business owners are not educated with the law, they've never been faced with this, and they're afraid of being sued. And so even if they know the law, because if a dog is unruly, service dog or not, and a dog is disruptive in public, it can be asked to leave legally. But a lot of businesses don't even want to cross that road because they just don't want the risk of being sued. They just don't want that. And it's very insulting, and it's very frustrating to people with disabilities, because any of the veterans that we've provided service dogs for, as grateful as they are for that service dog, they would rather have a normal life where they don't need a service dog. Nobody takes a service dog out that truly needs one because it's a novelty. It's actually a tremendous inconvenience. But what that service dog provides for them in the form of their life of freedom and independence and making their life better, that service dog makes them able to go out in public. They would much rather choose to not need that dog than have it. So when somebody takes a dog out as a fad or because they just want their pet with them, and it disrupts the public and also makes a very negative impression for the public to have dogs out, it's really frustrating for them because they need this dog.
Shannon,
And
we only
people
have
with
about
big service dogs are just making that worse.
we only have about 10 seconds left. Where can people find out more, especially businesses, so they can, get up to date on what they can do if they think that a fake service dog is in their establishment?
If they would go to the website of the ADA, they can find out what the laws are that protect them against fake service dogs and get educated, because education is the way to fight this. And then reinforcing the laws that are already in place. It would make a huge difference.
Shannon Walker, specialist on PTSD and service dogs. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Specialist on PTSD, Northwest Battle Buddies, Shannon Walker. Pleasure having you on again. Happy New Year, Shannon. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy New Year to you, too.
You guys prep and train dogs to help those with post-traumatic stress. Tell me exactly what you do and how people can give you money to train the dogs.
Absolutely. Here at Northwest Battle Buddies, we provide professionally trained service dogs to combat veterans with PTSD, and we provide those dogs absolutely free of charge to our American heroes. Our dogs go through 7 months to a year of training prior to the veteran even meeting their dog, and then once that we've paired them, those veterans go through 6 weeks of professional training and handling before they are gifted those dogs. And the dogs cost us about $25,000, and we are completely privately funded, but they are 100% free to American heroes.
I see this story says fake service dogs on the rise. There's no way this is true. Nobody that I'm living on Earth in this lifetime would anybody have a fake service dog. Come on, Shannon. That's just ridiculous.
I wish that was true, but there isn't a day that we go out with our service dogs in training that we don't encounter fake service dogs. And it's very obvious for the most part what a fake service dog is, but I guess it's obvious to me because I do this for a living. But when you see an unruly dog 5 feet in front of its handler on a flexi lead that is disrupting the public, clearly that is a fake service dog, and the laws are very much being abused. And it's a tremendous negative not only to the public but to the people who truly need these service dogs in order to live life with freedom and independence. So unfortunately, it's something that we encounter on a daily basis.
All right, so are they fake service dogs by intention or just bad trainers?
No, I think that for the most part there's an ignorance. I think some people feel justified because they're ignorant of the law, and they're just taking their pet out, and they have a disability. They have a need in their mind that they think this dog serves them for. But under the guidelines of the ADA and the laws, they are still breaking the law. And then I know well, in fact, that there's people that take dogs out who just they think it's a novelty and they want to have their pet with them. They, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what the reasons, they're still breaking the laws that are set forth by the ADA to protect the disabled and protect the rights of the disabled to have service dogs in public.
Isn't it hurt you because it gives you all a bad name?
Absolutely, it hurts us. There's not a time in all of our veterans, even if their dogs are acting perfect in public, they still face discrimination because people don't want dogs in public. And even if your dog, some people just don't think dogs belong there. And I understand that, but it doesn't change the laws that are set forth by the ADA to protect the disabled so they can have that service dog. But it's an incredible negative, especially when somebody has a bad taste in their mouth because of a bad experience with a fake service dog. Then they feel more justified that no dog should be allowed in public. And not only that, but it's dangerous. We have dogs that are lunging on the end of the line at our dogs in public all the time, and those are supposed to be service dogs, and they're not.
Shannon Walker, Northwest Battle Buddies, they help train dogs for post-traumatic stress disorder. How many dogs have you done, Shannon?
We have provided 46 service dogs free of charge to veterans in the last 5.5 years. We actually just started another group of 6 veterans last Monday, so they're here for another 5 weeks. It was a tremendous, exciting week, having them meet their dogs. It's met with tears and anxiousness and hope, but smiles. And they just, we have veterans last week that were in the mall for the first time in years. And they're learning to navigate life in a new way with their service dog at their side. And so it's a lot of work, but it's so rewarding. And our American heroes need this, and they deserve this because our freedom wasn't free. And we want to say thank you in a very significant life-saving way by providing these service dogs that will give them freedom and independence and hope for a different future. So we're super excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome what you're doing, Shannon. I know you've thought about this. Do you have a plan for it? Because I can't imagine what somebody with post-traumatic goes through when the dog dies.
Oh, absolutely. We are set up in our organization that if a service dog passes away or something happens, then those veterans go to the top of our list, and we will immediately serve them with another service dog if they need.
Wow.
That is very important. We've discussed that a lot in our meetings and have already, preparation for that to make sure that American hero doesn't have to go one day without a service dog that he doesn't want to.
It's awesome what you're doing, Shannon. You're really changing lives. You're frankly changing generations.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's the least we can do because no matter what we do for them, it'll never compare to what they've done for us in the case of our freedom and serving our country, them serving our country. So, it's an honor to serve them. It's a miracle what we do, watching these dogs serve them in their life and how it changes them. It truly is a miracle, and it's a blessing to be able to be a part of it.
Shannon, how can people give money?
If they go to northwestbattlebuddies.org, we are completely privately funded, and they can also find us on Facebook. And every donation, every dollar is appreciated because it helps and makes it possible for us to do what we do. We just want to do it more. Our veterans right now, we have some veterans on this group that started this week that have waited 3 years. Our goal is that no veteran waits more than 6 months once they've qualified, because when they have hope for for a different life, we don't want them waiting years and losing hope. We want to be able to serve them faster, more prompt. So our goal is that nobody waits more than 6 months. So we're working very diligently to make that happen.
Shannon, keep up your great work. Thanks so much. I really appreciate all you're doing out there.
Thank you so much for the time.
So I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people bringing their dogs into certain places, bringing their last time I was at the bar with my wife, we experienced a couple people bringing in their dogs, and they had their therapy dogs on the side of their pet, and it made me wonder how often are we seeing those showing up in different places as perhaps a fake service dog. Thought I'd talk about that. Shannon Walker joining me now, specialist on PTSD. Shannon, thanks a lot for joining us this morning. So are we seeing more and more people bringing their dogs into grocery stores, bars, restaurants, etc., than we had in the past, or am I just imagining that?
No, you're not imagining that, unfortunately. It's a daily occurrence. We provide, at Northwest Battle Buddies here, we provide service dogs to combat veterans with PTSD, and so we're out every day, and we are every day encountering fake service dogs, and you can tell they're fake by the behavior of the dog and the handling skills of the handler. And, it's really a shame that the law is being abused. It was a broad law, and we were used to the dogs mostly serving the blind or hearing impaired or even a mobility dog, you might see. So it was very, very clear. But now the dogs are being used, their talents are being used to detect and serve disabled people in such a significant way when they're professionally trained and they are trained to perform tasks to serve that human. It's a great thing to be able to use the dog that way, but the laws have been broad, and people are significantly abusing the laws, and they find it's a novelty to take their pet out. And even if a therapy dog is a real therapy dogs are not allowed access in the public. And neither are emotional support dogs.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Not allowed access in the public? Just that when you have a therapy dog, that it stays at your house and that's it?
No, therapy dogs are used to serve like a group of people. Like you could take a therapy dog in, whether it's a single human, or you could take a certified therapy dog in that has gone through training into retirement homes or hospitals for other people to love on your animal and to bring comfort to maybe a stranger. Unless it's a therapy dog can be for one human, or it can go out and serve other people, like in a hospital.
Okay.
But the dog passes certification to do that. Service dogs are not to be petted by anybody. They're supposed to do their work in public, perform tasks for their human, and they're trained to ignore the public. That's why they should never be petted. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, fake service dogs are out there with their owners, and people are allowing them to be petted. they are acting unruly, and it's really confusing the public about what the etiquette is. The dogs are disruptive. The fake service dogs are creating a very negative stigma for the public and business owners. They have to endure this when it shouldn't be that way, and it makes it very difficult for people with legitimate needs, legitimate service dogs, because now they're often entering public places and people really don't want their dog there, even though they are completely legitimate and their dogs are perfectly behaved.
Shannon Walker joining us this morning on today's Talk 1490. I have a friend that owns basically it's called Doggy Business LLC, and I've asked her to see if we could talk about this, and she says that irritates her so much that she wouldn't be able to, and she didn't want to push buttons with some of her clients and whatnot. So I'm glad that we're able to do this, because as I said, I've run into this many times where somebody just sits there, brings their dog in because they don't want to be separated from their dog or their animal. If that's the case, should they just stay at home with their pet all the time, or find a babysitter for their dog? I'm not sure. What's the solution for people like that?
Well, the fact is, if somebody just doesn't want to be away from their pet, and they just don't want to be away from their pet because they think it's fun to take their dog in public and it's cool and it's a novelty, well, they need to leave their dog at home. If somebody truly needs what a service dog can provide in public, like as an example, we provide service dogs to combat veterans who have PTSD. At Northwest Battle Buddies. And those dogs are trained to perform tasks that help alleviate the symptoms of PTSD. And so if somebody truly needed a dog to be able to function in public, if they were afraid of public, if they were isolated in their home because they were afraid to go out in public and they had a disability and that dog could be trained to perform tasks to give them more freedom and independence in public, then they should seek out a professionally trained service dog. But you don't take your pet from your house that's not trained and take it out into public. You just don't do that. It's not only insulting to the people who are disabled, who truly need these animals, because even though we've provided, we're right now working on our teams, we've provided 56 service dogs in the last 6 years to disabled veterans free of charge with PTSD. There's as much as they appreciate those service dogs, those veterans would much prefer not to have PTSD and not have to take that dog out. As much as they appreciate their service dog, it is an inconvenience because you have to think about your day and dictate your day and what you do around the needs of that service dog. I mean, it is not convenient at all, but yet it is so necessary. They do it, and they do it gladly because of the hope that service dog brings them and the independence in their life. Whereas somebody who is at home and they just want to have their pet, it's just very, very insulting. It's such a negative to the public for people who truly are disabled and need these dogs to perform these tasks for them.
Shannon Walker from NorthwestBattleBuddies.org. If you want to find out more information, I'm on your website now and just kind of looking around. And you mentioned 56 dogs that you guys have given free of charge to veterans.
Absolutely. Our dogs go through 7 months to a year of training professionally before they even meet their veterans. And then the veterans go through, once they qualify for the program, they go through 6 weeks of training with us professionally. We just started another group, 1 week ago, we just started another group of 6 veterans, and some of them have waited on our list for over 3 years. Wow. And so we provide these dogs. The dogs cost us about $25,000, and we gift these dogs to these American heroes that are so deserving because our freedom was not free. And even though they aren't wearing a uniform anymore, the symptoms of their PTSD can be debilitating in their life. And so what we do here at Northwest Battle Buddies is we want to say thank you in a very significant, life-changing way by providing a highly trained service dog to help bring freedom and independence. We have veterans out in public, out in the malls right now that haven't been out in the malls for years. But they're doing it because they need to make the training with their service dogs, and they'll do it because that service dog is at their side, giving them that support that they need. But these dogs are also going to be very practical. Every single one of our dogs wake our veterans up from night terrors. Every single one of our dogs will stop a panic attack in the middle of the day and alleviate those symptoms and help bring that veteran back to the moment of now, as well as act as social barriers and provide specific physical needs at times when needed. And it really is life-changing for our American heroes who have received our dogs.
Now, Shannon, because you guys are running a legitimate place for people to pick up their service dogs, when you see and hear all these stories online and see them on the news and whatnot of people having their quote service chicken or their service pig, or you know where I'm going with this, right? Where you see people have these fake service animals, and all you have to do is send $19.95 to a website, and they'll send you back a certificate saying that your cow is your service animal. You can bring that cow wherever you want. Does that kind of stuff just irritate legitimate people like you guys when you see stuff like that?
It is. It actually makes me very angry, and it's incredibly insulting to the people who provide the service dogs and work so hard to make sure our service dogs are perfect and absolutely invisible in public. They are absolutely not a negative, and they are doing and performing the tasks they need to perform. And not only does it make me angry, but it's dangerous because when you have a fake service dog in there that is a powerful breed, especially on a stink and flexi lead, that somebody has their dog 5 feet in front of them on a retractable leash, and that dog will start to lunge or key on our animals. And our dogs completely ignore those fake service dogs. Even if a dog is lunging on the end of the leash, barking, which has happened multiple times, our dogs will continue to just walk and ignore it and pay attention to their handler. And it's extremely frustrating. And it's frustrating when the business owners don't kick those dogs out or escort them out. But I understand why they don't, because they're afraid of being sued, and the law isn't clear, and they just don't want to fight. But it's insulting, it's frustrating, and it's dangerous. And I just try to keep moving forward with the positive work that we're doing and the difference that we're making, and then I educate our handlers when they see that to actually give that dog, the fake service dog room and go to the other side of the store and just do what they have to do to protect their service dog. It's a shame that people they're abusing the system in such a way because the laws have been broad. Because usually service dogs were only for sight impaired, hearing impaired, or even a mobility dog. Well, it was very, very clear and few and far between that those dogs were ever in public. But since dogs have started to serve in such a wider capacity in a legitimate way, that people have found out, and it's become a fad and a novelty, and it's sad, it's frustrating, it's very angering, and but it is what it is, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing by making a difference and making sure that our service dogs change the idea, and hopefully, I tell our handlers with our Northwest Battle Buddy dogs, you be the most professional, polite person out there with a service dog and help change the view of the public and let them see the significant black and white difference between a highly trained service dog and a dog that is not.
How can you tell?
Hopefully, the public will start to see the difference.
Shannon, how can you tell the difference if you're somewhere and you see, Bob Schmidt walking his dog inside of a bar, petting his dog, saying it's a service dog because he's all jittery when he's around the public, and Bob Schmidt with a real service dog. How do you know the difference? How do you know the difference?
Well, the main difference. Sometimes you can't tell if a pet is in public and they happen to be docile. You're not going to be able to tell the difference if the dog is at the handler's side and he's being quiet. But most service dogs are not. Most service dogs are unruly. They're excited. They're walking 4 or 5 feet in front of the handler. Not to mention the handler etiquette. You will never see a professionally trained service dog or a professional handler with their dog in their lap in a restaurant. It just isn't going to happen. And so the unruly behavior is the biggest tell, is the biggest obvious indicator that it's a fake service dog. And there's only two things that a business can ask somebody with a service dog is this your service dog or is this a service dog? And the second question is what tasks are this dog trained to perform for you? And if you can answer those two questions, but even if you can't answer those questions, I don't believe they can necessarily be kicked out. The only thing they can be kicked out for is unruly behavior.
Are some of them
they can legally do that.
Are some of them just emotional support? Hey, my dog calms me down, puts me in that moment of zen. Or do they do more than just okay?
No, absolutely. If someone's taking a fake service dog out, it's just because they have a novelty and they want that dog with them. But an emotional support dog does not have the legal rights of access that a service dog has. and a therapy dog. Therapy dog is an emotional support dog and service dog are clearly defined differently, and they have different purposes, and each one is very important. But they cannot they cannot jump from role to role, and they don't have the legal rights as each other. And the law people are very confused about that. And so even in my professional business as a dog trainer for the public, people will call me and say, well, I want my dog trained to be a service dog or a therapy dog because I want to go in public, or an emotional support dog because I want to go in public. And I'm constantly educating people about the defined lines, roles and responsibilities of each one of those categories.
Shannon Walker, my guest, a specialist on PTSD from Northwest Battle Buddies. Shannon, how do we find out more information, or how can we help with some of your donations of dogs to service members?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. We can be found at northwestbattlebuddies.org. It's all spelled out. We can also be found on Facebook. Our dogs are completely privately funded. They cost us over $25,000 by the time we gift them to our American heroes, and they are 100% free to our American heroes. And our freedom was not free, and the need for professionally trained service dogs to our veterans with PTSD is so great. At times, we have a waiting list of 3 years for our veterans.
Wow, it's a long time. Hey, Shannon, I appreciate your time this morning, and appreciate you answering those questions that I had about it.